Hello.
Hello. Brain Candy Podcast, episode 829.
When I logged on, it said that your connection is good. And usually it says your connection is great. So I have to make the content of this great to make up for my good. When it was good, I'm like, good.
That's rude.
Like, rude? Right.
It's like, it's fine.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. You're like, your connection's fine. I was like, oh,
wow.
judgy. Yeah,
that hurts.
I know that's silly, but.
All right, well, we'll compensate.
Yeah. How you doing, Suze?
Pretty good over here. How about you?
Good. I am drinking for the first time in a long time.
Thank God.
So we'll see how this goes. I was packing up everything because I'm going on a little camping trip, and my brother was like, bring the booze, bring da da da, and there was a bottle that was almost empty, so I had to top off a little bit of the whiskey in the coffee.
Good for you.
Right? It's just the way it goes. So I've been off the sauce for a while.
Mm-hmm. How's it feel? It's going down easy, right?
It's going down easy. But it's been feeling really good to be off the sauce. I'm like...
Has it, though?
Yeah. You know what? You know when you were... Oh, my God. Hang on. Time out. Is that an In-N-Out mug?
Yes.
Oh,
I got this for Lincoln for his birthday. He had an In-N-Out birthday.
Which was so cute, by the way.
Yeah.
That is.
We miss it a lot. When you took that brief, 24-hour trip, just then did you stop at In-N-Out?
I should have. We talked about it.
Yeah, you should have.
You know what? When I went to my aunt's for her 80th birthday, my brother picked up In-N-Out.
How was it?
It was really, really good. But then I was like, I really needed to eat. It had been hours since I last ate. I had just gotten out of a 3-hour drive through LA traffic, 3+ hours drive. I was super hangry. We were unloading and unpacking everything. And I definitely asked for a hamburger, and I got a cheeseburger. And I was like,
why would anyone
eat
order
it, but I'm not
hamburger?
happy about it. Because I don't like melted cheese.
I truly can't believe they even make hamburgers without cheese on them.
I know. I just like it better that way.
But when you bit into it, were you like, oh, wait, this is actually better?
No. It's got to be a texture thing.
It's like really hard for me to accept.
I know. And then I watched this whole thing on some doctor or whoever it was talking about why we love cheese and what happens when cheese is melted and how when that interacts with carbohydrates, what's in bread, that it basically causes oxytocin,
euphoria.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We get cheese high. And I was like, can't relate, not to cheese on a hamburger like that. It's just not for me. I don't know.
So it kind of ruined it for you.
Mm-hmm. It didn't ruin it, but my experience of the hamburger.
Sorry.
And I should have checked myself first.
Before you wrecked yourself.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm very jealous. I crave it all the time. I miss it.
Yeah. It's not the same out here. But anyways, I got distracted. What the hell was I even talking about before?
You were talking about alcohol and...
Oh, boozing. Oh, yeah, we're going camping. I wanted to share this. Tonight will be the first night in my whole entire life, I was thinking about this, that I will be camping by myself.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
Goodbye forever.
All I have to do is survive one night. I've got your Garmin thing set up. I got the subscription ready to go. I won't get lost. But I'm not going anywhere where I'm not going to be located. There's Wi-Fi, for Christ's sake.
I mean, I keep reading about how these national parks are a problem.
Oh my God. I'm not going into a national park. I'm going to dispersed camping that's right off of the main road in a really cute area. I won't say.
Oh my God, you're gonna have neighbors.
I mean, neighbor-ish. I don't want to talk.
Do you have a policy where you won't go on your phone and stuff, or what?
It's not what I want to make it about. I want to do heavy crossword puzzling. I want to do some of that.
You're gonna be bored out of your mind.
No way. I'm gonna do fire maintenance. I'm gonna be maintaining the fire and just that alone. Doing all that stuff. I've always done that myself when I've gone camping, But the idea of doing it all by myself, I feel like I'm going to feel so excited when I made, like, I made a fire! Look at that! I'm alone and I did it! Like,
well, because, like, you were going with people all this time, but, like, emotionally you were still alone because they were all, like, morally bankrupt, complete sociopaths. So maybe it'll feel, like, better.
It might feel better. It might. I know when I go camping with my brothers, it feels amazing. So I'm gonna get.
Do you people all snuggle or what? What is?
No, we all have our own tents. We're not crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, my brother and his girlfriend. My brother has built out the back of his big truck, and it's like enclosed, and so he's got like a mattress back there, and it's like made for camping out and being outside. So him and his girlfriend are gonna sleep in that. My brother Jordan has his tent that he sleeps in. And I got mine. That's my best ever deal that I got from the Goodwill.
I love this.
You know this story.
I love it.
Originally was marked they were supposed to mark it as $29.99. They accidentally put it as $2.99, and I got a 6-person tent from Target in the box, all the parts, for $2.99.
I mean, that is roomy. 6-person.
It fits a queen size air mattress.
Wow. Do you bring that?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I've kept it. I've wondered, like, should I downsize? Blah, blah, blah. But I keep it because if you are in a rainy place and all of a sudden it starts thunderstorming. Yeah,
you got to put everything in there.
Oh, everybody hop in the tent. We can do a little round of Settlers of Catan in the old tent.
Oh, my God.
Oh, no.
That is terrible.
It's everything I love.
That's nice for you. I love it for you.
So I'm gonna, try to not get murdered, and I feel like I'm out of the age of getting murdered, right?
Well, maybe by man, but not by beast.
I'm not worried about beast. I know how to do it. I really am. It really
beast.
Really is it really is a fucking meet a bear. Which one, or who do you want to be in the woods with? I know there is not any animal that I am scared about, I wouldn't have the chance of defending myself against if it did want to eat me. Like, the only things I'm scared about, mountain lion, bobcat, like large cat. That is it. And
do you
I'm
have
not
like bear spray or something? Maybe I'll get that for you.
I was thinking that. I was thinking, like,
it couldn't hurt.
It couldn't hurt, like, to have something. Like,
something.
I got my, that bird alarm, the alarms that we had? I have that.
Okay.
That's in my bed. And I have it, like, ready. Like, and I've already planned it, because that's what we do as women, plan our attacks and what we're going to do. So I have it, like, right on the keychain, right next, like, that, like, stays on my little carabiner on my hip. And then if anything were to happen, I'd pull it and then I'd throw it so that they couldn't find
like a grenade.
So that they would be like, I'd be like, what are you going to do now, motherfucker? That's definitely calling attention. And I've ran through this scenario as I was
You're
packing.
ready. Okay.
Always
Good
be
for
prepared.
you.
So
always be prepared.
Yeah.
Everybody should also be prepared for the interview that we have coming up later so that they don't get caught off guard. Everyone gets upset whenever we bring it on. It's Emily Nussbaum she's a writer for The New Yorker, but she wrote a book called Cue the Sun, The Invention of Reality TV.
You know what? I never like buy a book, but it is so popular. This book is like, they were like, I'm in the queue for the audiobook and the actual physical book on, or the ebook at the library. 10 weeks. Wait.
Wow. Congrats to Emily for that.
No. So I bought it because I was like, I have to have this. It's a reality television book.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's like, it feels like it's for actual research.
Oh, it's so good.
So popular.
Mm-hmm. It's very thick. It'll take you a minute to read, and it is our book club pick for July as well. Yeah. And so you should get cooking while you're on that campfire scenario because
oh my God, duh.
Yeah, it'll take a minute, but it is packed full of stuff where you're like, whoa, that is fascinating. Because she starts way back, like 1940s. We're not talking cops here. We're going way back.
Oh my God. We need that kind of history.
Like Candid Camera back in the day.
Oh yeah. The actual history of unscripted television.
But there's a whole chapter about Real World, and it is a doozy. I was shocked. And you know us, we talk about this stuff all the time. People are named, and like it talks about how on the first season.
Is Johnny in it? Who's in it?
It's about the first season. So it's about like, how it began, what happened, and like how it set the pace for the whole series, and how like, I don't remember if we've talked about this, but on my show, and I'm pretty sure on every season, there's always this moment where the producers or directors come to the cast and say like, you guys are really not taking advantage of this. You're kind of like boring. You're not like doing the most.
They
with your
threatened to take away our cards, our playing cards.
Yes. Yeah. There's always a moment where the producers and directors panic because they think there's not enough story.
Yeah.
And so they nudge. And in this case, they planted a book in the house, in the New York cast house, of photos. And one of the photos was of Eric Nies naked, that he had taken for a photographer, like for a modeling job.
Oh my God. I didn't know that.
And then Julian, Heather B found it, and then it caused this big ruckus. And then Mary Ellis was just sort of like, we call it throwing pebbles into the pond.
Well, then I think they fucking threw a pebble into the pond when my dad called the Real World house.
I think so too.
Oh, I'm actually sick right now.
And they
now
think
I'm
it's like
100% convinced. Now I'm sure. I always thought that.
Right, we did.
But now if you have an actual fucking name and you've been doing it since season 1 in this way, there's no way. Explain that. Tell me how.
Well, so in this case, the cast found out that it was planted, and they went like on strike. They were like, fuck you. This is supposed to be legit documentary. And what are you doing? This is bogus. And John Murray and Mary Ellis Bunham had to like do that thing that they do where they finesse the cast and massage us and say like, no, you know what? Yes, we did it, but like it's to help you grow and like
and you
talk.
owe it to the fans who are going to get so much out of it, and you don't know how much people want to see this, and this is da-da-da. Yep, I've been on the receiving end of that fucking conversation.
Right,
I'm actually mad right now,
and it's very convincing.
Of course, I'm going to fall for it. I'm 21. I'm 21 years old.
Mm-hmm. It's so
and little Susie, virtual Susie.
I know. 18 I was.
Living under where I'm sorry.
They did a whole episode because I said the F word one time.
You're going to please.
And when you read it, when their own words I'm like, yeah, we did it, but like, it's cuz we're trying to make a show, and like this will help them have conversations, and like it's just what you said. Like people can learn from it, and
I know.
They justify it in their own mind,
right?
They do not think it's gross
to achieve their desired outcome, and people become pawns. People become like a means to an end.
Because it does make better TV.
I
know. It's a lot.
I'm excited to read this. I bet. Good thing I'm by myself.
Yeah,
I'll
for
be
real.
like,
you will not believe
turning the page, like getting angry. I mean, not an actual page. I'll be flipping like this
because Emily,
my Kindle.
She sort of, each chapter is about different shows, but she has these threads that go throughout where you see themes of like, oh, this is how they do it, and this is the consequence, and this is why it matters, and like you can get the bigger picture. Because it's easy for us to feel like all alone, like especially when everyone's saying like, oh my gosh, how was it? Do you still talk to those people? Like they just want to talk about the fun stuff. The fans.
It's really... You have had the experience of being in and then on the outskirts of not just like church and religion and this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's interesting. And like viewing it with awareness and with increased like understanding and perspective.
I said to Emily in the interview, I said, the argument is often lobbed at us that you knew what you were getting into. Mm-hmm. And even the producers will say that. Yeah. And I don't understand how they can look you in the eye when you're 18 years old and you're cast because you're a virginal Christian who's never like left her house. Right. And also make the argument that I would have known what I was getting into.
If you're cast because you're naive, you can't also be...
Yeah.
Right.
Which is it?
Which is it?
And so that struck me. Like, they want it both ways. They want to be able to say, like, my hands are clean. They knew what they were doing.
And I was cast because I was a victim, and then they treated me like a victim.
And if they did orchestrate that phone call, I mean, that's pretty darn gross.
That is really gross.
I'll tell you what's not gross. Mosh.
Oh.
Bars. Not gross at all.
I just got their sample pack.
Yes.
And because I needed to mix it up because I've been on the lemon kick for a long time.
Sarah was on a binge.
I was on a binge. I still am. Because that'll always be my favorite. But it feels like other people have wised up because their sample pack had 2 lemons in there. And I was like, you guys know that that's the secret best flavor.
It's so good.
It's like one where you'd eat it and then you'd be like, fuck, I'm so mad I ate that. And don't worry, second one available. I have them packed, ready to go for my trip.
See, these babies are so good. They have 10 delicious flavors. They have 3 that are plant-based, so if you are into that. Look, Sarah's got one right now for product placement. Peanut butter chocolate
crunch. They're so good.
But also they support brain health. Like ashwagandha in there, lion's mane, collagen, omega-3s. This is really something that'll support you, and they're yummy and fill you up, and that's great. And you can keep them on hand for any time you need them. And they support women's health research. We love that. If you want to find ways to give back to others and fuel your body and brain, Mosh Bars are the perfect choice for you. Head to moshlife.com/braincandy to save 20% off plus free shipping on either the bestsellers trial pack or the new plant-based trial pack. That's 20% off plus free shipping on either the bestsellers or plant-based trial pack at moshlife.com/braincandy. Thank you, Mosh, for sponsoring this episode.
I got the regular one.
Nice.
I didn't know plant-based was an option.
Yeah, I've had them both tasty.
Okay.
Whatever your pleasure.
All right. You want to learn some stuff?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes. Okay. What do you know about the remains of Lucy?
Nothing.
Oh, I'm so excited to teach you. Okay.
Yes.
So, Lucy.
I know she's from New York, Jamestown, New York. You mean Lucille Ball?
No, but this is hilarious.
Who's Lucy?
I mean the anthropological remains that were found.
I love how you act like that's where I would assume. If someone says Lucy...
I think I gave some hints. Or I said Lucy the...
I didn't hear Lucy
I think I said something else afterwards. What do you know about Lucy the archeological... something?
You said, what do you know about Lucy's remains?
Oh... Okay, that could be interpreted either way if you were a fan of Lucille Ball.
And your mind goes to missing link.
Yes.
Okay.
Lucy.
I don't know anything about Lucy's remains either.
The missing link. What do you know about the missing link? Have you heard about her? Are you familiar?
Yeah, I know. I've heard about her.
Story still applies. That was great. Usually it's me mixing things up like that. This is so fun for me.
You did. That's why I was confused.
Right. I see. Okay, it's my fault again. I'm fine with that. Run it. Okay, so Lucy is an Australopithecus afarensis fossil that was found in Ethiopia. It was found in 1974 in Hadar in the Badlands of Ethiopia by this paleontologist named Donald Johansen. And like he was like digging around doing his like archaeological like what's that guy's name from the movie with the hat
in Jurassic Park?
No.
Oh.
Not Jurassic. No. Indiana Jones. He's like Indiana Jones, he's like paleontologist. Well, sort of. More like Ross from Friends actually. Like digging around and he finds an elbow sticking out. And they dig some more, and they end up finding 47 other bones
I just can't quit thinking about Lucy, the comedian.
Right. Look.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Dahmer, Lucy. Like,
what
put
are
it on
we
the
going to
list.
learn about her dead body?
We're going to learn more about. Somehow, I could tie this to Lucille Ball in the end.
Right.
I will. Like,
Yeah,
we could somehow get there, and that's why everyone loves Lucy. Okay, so 47 other bones were found, and it's the most bones that we found of a single individual dating back to this time period. And it is the oldest, most complete human set of human remains that we have. And it dates back.
So she's considered human.
Yes. And I'm glad you asked that. So she is considered human because she stands on 2 feet. She's upright, bipedal. And we know that because of the shape of the curve of her spine. We know that because of the way that her hips are placed.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, the whole story of Lucy and how we view remains is fascinating to me, and what I want to talk about today, because like my whole theme for this was how true is history, and what is history? History is really only through the lens of the people recording the history and how we interpret whatever we find. And based on who finds it and what the culture says at that time, we're going to view things differently. Yeah. So she is like considered like the missing link, because for a long time it was widely understood and accepted until 1974 when these remains were found that first came a big brain. That first your brain would evolve to be big, and then we would start walking upright. And she was the first remains, the only remains we found, that had a small brain, but also walked upright. And she was tiny. She was only 2 feet tall. This is a really cool picture. I'm going to show you this. This is a picture of the Johansson's daughter standing next to... or maybe it was like somebody else. But that's her. That's a 4-year-old.
Lucy is so cute.
She's the remains.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
She's so tiny is what I mean.
Yes, she is very tiny, but then had all of the... It's like, that's a child. But I see what you were saying. But you can see the proportions when you look at the picture that they're not a child. This is a full-grown adult. They have the proportions of an adult, and so we know all those things about an adult. And we proved through finding, the paleontologists and archaeologists, proved that first came standing upright, that was the first evolutionary like jump we made, and then after that we must have developed the big brain. And so, and the large brain didn't show up for another 1 million years. She was found, her remains are about 3.2 million years old.
It's unreal.
Have you seen images of her, like, as they depict her with...
I think so. So like in my mind, I have.
Yeah. If you were to kind of imagine her and describe her, how if they did, like, one of those modelings of her where they... put skin on her, and how would you describe her to look? Yeah, not pretty.
I guess a cross between, like, I don't know, like more like an ape, but then also just like a small human.
And very hairy, right?
Yeah. Okay. In my mind.
Right. In everybody's mind, because that is how they showed it. That is how they, like, the...
What do they call that? Computer generated.
Yeah, like, and even when... you can imagine in 1974, they were just doing like models of it out of, I don't know, like clay, basically like Jim Henson kind of style, like creating a body around it. I have another picture of that, I think, in here. But whenever we do that, this is the same argument that I made with the dinosaurs and their feathers and how, like,
that's right. That's what came to mind. Yeah.
Okay. So now we know that this is something that humans do, because new research on hair and humans, like body hair and the evolution of when we lost our hair, shows that she was naked.
So she was hairless?
She did not have hair.
Hairless wonder.
That we depict her. Every single image that we have depicts her with hair. Yeah. Because there's something that we have done through the lens of being a person in this modern era, or 1974 and to now, even now, where we say anybody who has breasts would cover them up. They wouldn't, or like if you wouldn't walk around naked. So we don't even imagine in our depictions of these humans from 3.2 million years ago to have anything other than hair. They can't be walking around naked, but they were, and we know that.
Right. So like, it's almost like we did the opposite. Instead of making it like a human, we were like, that's too far away. That's got to be ape.
It's almost like the shame and like, and there have been other examples of this throughout history. I read something a while back that now that more women are, in every field, and like you're looking at history through a lens that's maybe not the patriarchal lens, that we're starting to see things like ancient sex toys and like older thing where now a woman goes, I know exactly what that is. That's a dildo. And like nobody knew.
But at the time they're like, it looks like a walking stick.
A magic wand or whatever. Because it was like men like looking at this.
Yeah, that's a carburetor.
Right. And it just got me thinking about like, when I went to, where was I? Pompeii, like that time period.
You went there. That's cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. But they would often decorate like as like I don't know if it's good luck or fertility or virality or whatever the word is. They would have like phallic images on the walls and on the top of the door frames. And how depending on who takes over next in history, they can be like, no, we don't like that. We don't show that. And just erase parts of history. And it just made me think like, how reliable is history really? Like it's not.
When you can imagine a scenario, let's say, you know how you were talking about nuclear waste and all the things a gazillion years in the future. Let's imagine that the world is different then and we don't have like the same type of plant life. And they just see like pictures of flowers all over our houses. And then they teach people, they would display the sex organs of various life. I mean, that's what flowers are. It's sex organs.
Exactly it.
And they might think that is so aggressive or whatever. Maybe how we see like the phallic stuff,
Oh my gosh.
Maybe something like that.
What made you? That is so. I love that. That's like a Sarah thought. That is so interesting.
That's a fair. Sarah, I don't know.
Were you stoned? Did you have a gummy? That was great.
No, like whenever, well, when I initially started thinking about it was when I was studying Old Testament, like Hebrew stuff, and they would display.
No, it wasn't when I smoked weed, Sarah. It was from when I was doing my doctorate program.
There are different traditions where they will display different kinds of stuff that seem provocative to us, but the equivalent really would just be flowers,
Oh my God. That is so true. Like the penis caves in Thailand where they have all of, like you go in and it's just carvings of dicks.
But maybe they thought they were beautiful.
And they must have been like, and
that's a beautiful dick.
I love looking at things through.
Right. Like we're so limited in our understandings.
And so limited. And I just keep seeing more and more examples of this. I think that the other, this is very similar to our assumptions we made or the anthropomorphizing, but not really anthropomorphizing, more like humans' impact on it with the dogs and their facial expressions and how dogs' facial expressions came to be and how it must be humans that did this or it must be because of this, that it couldn't be that people are walking around all
hairless
wonders. Yeah.
Take a break and think about flowers and also think about something else that's beautiful, which is my caraway cookware and bakeware.
Gosh, love
this stuff. I don't know, like I always try to think, like, what's a way that I can tell people, like, this is something you should really get into?
I'll tell you. I haven't used another pan.
That's a good way.
I have moved in. I've been living here for 2 months now. It is the only pan I have cooked with. Because the only pan I needed.
And it's true. Is the secret to great eggs and all kinds of sautéing and sauces. And then, of course,
really nice.
Like cakes and muffins and breads.
Yeah.
Slide right out.
Yeah.
They are nonstick, yet somehow non-toxic. They are beautiful. They are quality. I saw somebody like lumping Caraway in with all these like fly-by-night internet brands, and I was livid. I was like, I need to raise hell because that is not true.
My whole like, I don't know, test for it is I know the fancy schmancy stores that they sell it at.
Yeah.
Where, like, your girl who will never buy anything full price.
Yeah, we go to the discount corner.
Right. I'm like, there are a few things that I will spend my hard-earned dollars on.
Right. Because this is worth it. These are going to last a lifetime.
Right,
they are
I'm not in the business of replacing things every
3 years. No. Trust me. We would not steer you wrong. We did the math. Their internet famous cookware set comes with the sauté pan, fry pan, Dutch oven, and saucepan, plus lids and storage. It's the ultimate kitchen setup. Plus, we did the math, and the cookware will save you $150 versus buying them individually. Plus, if you visit carawayhome.com/braincandy, you can take an additional 10% off your next purchase. This deal is exclusive for our listeners, so visit carawayhome.com/braincandy or use code BRAINCANDY at checkout. Caraway is non-toxic cookware made modern.
Do you want to hear a few other examples of how we've interpreted
mistakes,
incorrect assumptions corrected by modern archaeology?
Yeah.
So first, Neanderthal intelligence. So we almost always look just like Lucy and say like these animals are primitive and less intelligent than modern humans. But now we're seeing that we have sophisticated tool making abilities, artistic expressions, which I love that, and really advanced social structures. So, and we're even seeing this at, just like you say, you can't have it both ways. When we see the monkeys at the zoo who are like using, that orangutan or something that somebody caught, like, what was he doing? He was like, using medicine.
Yeah.
So either they are really smart or they're not. You can't be like, no, they were dummies, right? They're not writing code, but they're, not the dummies
incredible.
we thought they were.
We don't give them enough credit.
Yeah. Another one is the Great Pyramids of Giza. For centuries, it was believed that the pyramids were built by slaves, but modern archaeological research and evidence from ancient worker communities have now debunked this notion and revealing that the construction involved skilled laborers who were likely respected members of society.
Yeah. And I was reading about how the way that they used water.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes.
And we were like, how'd they do that? And then never considered, the power of water.
Well, and we said, way before this video, many, many years ago on the podcast, that's why I love the show, because we always have evidence of how we were right before everybody else.
Show receipts.
We talked about how those chambers in the pyramids were not, there's a difference between pyramids and tombs, and how they buried the pharaohs in the tombs, which were not flat on the sides. They had the the stairs and the step ups, and the pyramids were hollow and just had these big empty hallways. And when they actually looked at where the Nile River used to run, it ran right under those pyramids, and those that it was believed that the
creative power. I remember.
Yes,
yeah,
and now and sound and
you
light.
said too that it's in some weird spot where electromagnetic activity happens and stuff.
It's right on the
hot spot.
Yes. Oh my God, I get goosebumps. We don't know a goddamn thing about anything. We come in, that was yesterday that we figured out now I'm going to teach you about why we know that Lucy doesn't have any hair.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because this is something that like, I mean, I'm passionate about hair removal. I'm a DIY waxer. Susie got me nads for Christmas. I am a fan of getting hair removed, but I've never thought, why don't we have hair? And when did we lose our hair? And what happened? And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we all lost our hair.
Okay, because theoretically,
yes,
an animal would have hair for warmth,
yes,
scent,
yes,
because it keeps your smell. Some people think that's why we have pubic hair, which is disgusting, because you want your scent to be
Well, it definitely is that.
Okay, what are the reasons? I don't know, but go ahead. How do we lose it?
So it's not as much the reasons as more I'm going to paint you the timeline of when this disappeared and why and how we know. So we know this all came from a 2007 New York Times article on lice. And we know about two very important things in history because we can see when and trace back when lice changed. So human lice only grows in three places. We have three kinds of human lice. We have head lice, body lice, and pubic lice.
It's disgusting.
I know. It's totally gross. And based on how those lice change from the lice that we share with gorillas is how we know when humans lost their hair, because the lice changed. The lice evolved. And the same lice
they had to adapt.
Yes. Lice had to adapt, and that's how we know. So,
what do you think is a worse phrase?
Oh, okay.
Pubic lice or crabs?
Oh, pubic lice. Oh, my God.
Why? Just because pubic is gross?
I think lice is the gross word. And louse. Blech.
But I do love the use of the word lousy, lousy. Because whenever you use it, like this place is lousy with, whatever.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is that what
I like that. We should use it more.
That actually makes me grossed out more. And now it makes it like it's crawling everywhere with it. And now I'm like,
like if you go to a place and there's all kinds of teenagers, you'd say, this place is lousy with teenagers.
I mean, whoa. We are learning things today.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so I want you to imagine that humans are hosting a very unique party, and the guests are different types of lice. We have head lice, body lice, and pubic lice, like I said. And so by looking at the timeline of when each group of lice showed up at the party, we can tell, and the conditions of the party when they showed up, we can tell exactly what was going on at that time.
Got it.
So, head lice, these are your original party goers.
Yeah, those are like the old OGs.
Yes, these are the ones, they have been with the humans for a long time. They have been hanging out since the beginning. They love a cozy environment. They have been staying there for millions of years. These are the OGs. They help you set up the party.
Classics,
the party classics. Then we have pubic lice. These are the exotic crashers.
Ew, exotic. Gross. Right?
Around 3 to 4 million years ago, when humans started losing most of their body hair.
3 to 4 million.
Yeah, 3 to 4 million. This is how we know. Now, remember, this is just like I did with the dinosaurs. Well, the age of Lucy, we know 3.2 million. And 4 million years ago is when we started losing our hair because a new group of guests arrived, the pubic lice. And these lice came from the gorilla party that was happening next door.
Those are gorilla lice. If you get pubic lice, it is from gorillas.
They share a same common ancestor with that. So they are
have
the
you
lice
ever had
that
pubic
came.
Lice?
No, I have not, because I've always been like a
I'm bare
shaved lady.
Shaved lady.
And so these guys were like, "Hey, we were just at the gorilla party next door. We need a place to hang out." And the only place that they are able to hang out and that they like live is
your disgusting
pubic
puberty
hair. Yes. Then we have the body lice.
Yeah, what are
these guys? Fashionably late. These guys are fashionably late because we're going to fast forward to around 83,000 to 170,000 years ago, just yesterday. And this is where humans started wearing clothes. And this is where we see the development of body lice. Body lice doesn't, believe it or not, live on the body. It lives in clothing that we wear on our body. So body lice evolved from head lice to adapt to living on clothing. And they're like the new party guests who decided that the new dress code was so cool that they moved into the clothes themselves. And so the appearance...
You're telling me that people have been wearing clothes for 80,000. Is that how many years?
83,000 years.
Think about that. That's how long we've been ashamed.
Yes.
That's unbelievable. That's really
I think we went through... We had a really long run of not being
That's true.
ashamed.
You're looking at the glass half full. You're like, look, we're proud for a long time.
And as somebody who, like, you love a good cover it up, I don't want to see any of your bits. Like, that's like your thing. You're like, I can't believe it took that long.
Oh. No, it's kind of still shocking because it's like, to me, shame feels so new.
Oh, new. Mm-hmm. Oh. I think like, this was more for warmth.
Okay.
That's
nice. I like
shame.
That a bit.
I think it was like, we are exploring. We are like venturing out, and we're going to areas.
Do you think they lost the hair and then needed clothes because they were so cold? Because why would they lose their body hair though?
I think that in the environment that they were in, they didn't. But as soon as they started,
okay, got it. That makes sense.
I know.
Like they didn't need it in the Fertile Crescent, but they sure as heck needed it in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure as heck.
Thanks
so
for
then we developed
that.
So the appearance of body lice indicates where humans began wearing clothes, and we could trace this back. So 3 to 4 million years ago, humans lose most of their body hair, and pubic lice makes its appearance. And 83,000 to 170,000 years ago, humans started wearing clothes, and body lice evolves to live in them.
Wow.
And
very interesting.
There's that fun lice party that can help you remember.
Have you had no kinds of lice?
I've had head lice.
Me too.
Oh, and I had head lice when my hair was down to my butt. And I will never forget the torture that it was. Yeah,
that would be really hard.
My
to get
mom
out of
probably thought
hair.
I'm going to shave her head off. I have so much fucking hair.
That'd be really hard to get the eggs out of a curly haired lady.
Yes, there's so much. I can remember. I can remember that day. I can remember where I was. I remember the bathtub. I remember the multiple showers. I remember every fucking thing about that day.
Did
and
it
I must have been
physically
7.
hurt getting them out? Or you were just grossed out? It
didn't hurt, but as much as it was like, you know that feeling when you just are ready to be done with something and you want it, you're like I get that feeling every time I paint my nails and I get to the pinky and I'm like, I gotta be done, I just gotta leave. It's like, or if like it's just like, I gotta get out of here. I also get that when I'm on a plane and the door is open, I'm waiting for the people in front of me. I'm like, if everybody doesn't move, I'm gonna freak the fuck out. And it's like that. So it's a little bit, and then I control it. I don't say that because I know how to act as a human.
But your impulse is like panic. Get me out of here.
If I let go of all social norms and yeah, I'd be that.
And that's how you felt when you had head lice.
And that's how I felt. I just want to be like, yeah. It's like even when they're blow drying my hair at the hair salon, I feel like that. I'm just like, get me the fuck out.
My God.
So that's what I felt, and that feels like uncomfortable. What about you? Was it painful?
No, because I have straight hair. It was much easier, I think, to get, because you get this little comb, right? And then you have to get all those eggs out.
My mom did it.
Yeah, my mom did it.
And now they have places that you go.
What?
Oh my God, yeah. There are salons that are just for head lice. And you go there and they're like, and they have like punny names. They always do. Always. It's always going to be like, nice to see ya, or whatever. I don't know. That was a terrible one. Because why would they name it that? That's so horrible. Okay, lice removal salon.
Lice to see.
Lice and Easy. What did I tell you? Lice and Easy. That is the fucking first one that came up. Am I always right or am I always right? Lice and Easy.
No.
I told you they're always puns every single time.
Why are they punning it?
Lice cleanse.
Lice cleanse. That is the worst.
This makes me laugh so much that is that's right down the road from me. It's not even like that's like the big fancy with it.
Why?
Oh,
it seems like it was better when it was at home with a little box. Why would I want to go somewhere?
I think you don't think if a not your mom or my mom, but maybe like fancy mom was like had $60 and was like, I have the option of doing this myself and risking getting lice or taking them to the lice salon. All you need is one breakout a year in a district, and you're like
lice
set.
Salon. Do they call them lice salons?
Susie, yes, the lice removal, 10 best lice removal in Denver. That's
crazy.
A real thing. There's like the lice cure. This is like
Let me see if we have
real
any.
thing. Yeah, Google yours. What are the names? I'm telling you.
What did you put in? Lice removal?
Lice removal salon.
Okay.
I love this.
Ours aren't good. Mine's just called North Pittsburgh Lice Clinic.
Well, that's not as fun. Clinic.
That is not fun
boring.
at all. Center for Lice Removal. We're just sad here. We're just like...
boring. They need to jazz up their lice removal over there in the old burg.
Yours have puns and everything.
Yeah.
Wow. You didn't know how good you had it.
I didn't. I really didn't. And this was Colorado and California, so maybe it has yet to sweep the nation. And as soon as the lice get there, so
yes,
will the funny names. Maybe that's it. We could expect it with the next infestation.
Theoretically, you go in and they give you a treatment, and then no problem.
Come out free of lice.
Lice and easy.
Lice and easy.
That's wild. All right. Well, I'm glad they've got it.
Should I name my therapy clinic that? Rice and Easy? Like,
you should. If you have your own clinic, it has to have a pun name.
Susie, we're trying to be serious here. Can you imagine coming in for your depression to Rice and Easy?
Listen, it's about marketing.
Okay.
You're like, I'm trying to be professional.
Trying to be a professional.
Yeah, rice. There's so many opportunities.
So many.
Remember what's the serious one? Serious rice? It's like, what's the wild?
Steamed
There's
rice?
Like wild. That's the one, steamed.
But that's more angry.
Steamed rice.
Yeah.
I'll have to think of like a good therapy rice pun, but just consider it. Okay, I'm sorry. We really do have a guest, and I'm sorry that I'm transitioning from a lice.
I know. I did that. I didn't set us up for success. I mean, but Emily, it was a fun story. You have a party. It's a party.
It was very fun and funny. And Emily was very fun to interview. And I actually think it's not one of my best interviews, but it's because I was so keen to do it. And I had so many questions and I didn't get to them.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I love this book so much. There were so many things I wanted to explore.
You want like a part 2. Yeah.
So I guess we'll have that in our candy club when we talk about it at the end of July when we have our meeting. And we could probably do it in 15 Minutes of Blame too, because there were just so many elements that I was like, we got to talk about this. I got to sort it out.
I love it.
But anyway, please, if you're thinking about it, if you're into reality TV, check out Emily Nussbaum's book, Cue the Sun, The Invention of Reality TV. The title is a callback to The Truman Show.
Oh, I was wondering. Okay, yeah. Got it now.
And she considers that element of like fictionalized versions of reality, which is weird. But if you're interested, the history is fascinating and much further back than I would have realized. And it's entrenched in American culture and now global culture. So welcome to the show, Emily Nussbaum. Welcome to the show. Talking about the book, Cue the Sun, The Invention of Reality TV. Masterpiece. It's so good. It's so good and thorough and thoughtful. So congratulations. How do you feel?
Excited and thrilled that you said that. That was delightful. I was saying before we got on, I was saying I'm so excited to do a podcast with someone who's been on a reality show, because it's a very different thing talking to people from outside the genre. And I'm really interested in your perspective on this, because I did a lot of work and I talked to more than 300 people for the book, but people's perspectives and experiences vary widely, and I want to sort of figure out how much it reflects somebody's experience.
Yeah, and you did a masterful job at weaving all these stories, and you even acknowledged in your acknowledgments how it's a much disputed story, that everyone remembers things differently, everyone has different points of view, and I can imagine how difficult that was for you to construct a narrative out of all these different, I don't know, stories. Is that how it felt?
Sort of. I mean, there's a level at which, as a reporter, it's always kind of gratifying and fascinating when you hit on a story where people have multiple perspectives. But then there's the question of how, in a fair way, to put it together, because you don't want it just to be a series of statements like so-and-so said such and thus. You have to actually try to sort it out a bit. But it was, I have this chapter on An American Family, the 1973 documentary that was very influential and was sort of it was about this family, the Louds, and they became sort of the first reality stars. And Grant Loud, when I was interviewing him, talked about how everyone always talks about their show as a Rashomon story. And then at a certain point, he realized that he hadn't known what happened in the movie Rashomon. He assumed, like most people, that it just meant everybody sees it differently. And he was like, no, that movie is about how everybody sees themselves as the hero of the story. And so in this, when I'm talking about conflicts between cast and crew and different people seeing the invention of these reality shows and the whole genre in different ways, a lot of times it was about that. It was about, not just how does somebody remember it, but where they place themselves in the story. But I have to say, I did try to give people, because a lot of this is about what happened while making these shows, but it's also about the creation of the genre. I did try to give people their little heroism moments, whatever people think of reality TV. It's a very influential and powerful aesthetic format that people did come up with. So when somebody created like The Confessional on The Real World or the phrase outplay, outlast, I wanted to, in the book, give them credit for it. So there was that too.
You did it beautifully, like providing the context of, you went back to radio.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people start at cops in these stories, but you did so much more, and I was so thankful.
Well, it's funny. The radio part of it was a real surprise to me. I did assume that it started, as you're saying, around the time of like the early 90s with The Real World or 89 with Cops. But it was only once I really started doing research, because I wanted to write about Candid Camera. Did I realize that Candid Camera was a radio show called Candid Microphone, which is a fascinating project.
It's hilarious.
And was really divisive. Like, people remember Candid Camera very nostalgically, but it really shocked and disturbed people. And also shows like Queen for a Day. And it was only once I started digging that I realized the key thing about it, which is that not only were these shows a big trend on radio that was called the audience participation trend, but it was almost identical to what happened with reality TV at the turn of the century, which is to say, these shows were made because they were cheap. They were a strike-breaking mechanism, a budget gambit, not to pay writers, not to pay actors. They were fascinating to people because they broke the spell of what was private and what was public, putting ordinary people on the air. And they created a huge moral crisis because there were all of these articles about how appalling and tacky these shows were and what kind of people would go out in public this way. So this was literally in the late 40s. It was right after World War II. And you would think that it would be a very different cultural landscape, but the same concerns about narcissism, exploitation, the same class divide, like it's all there. So yeah, the first chapter of the book is about that seemingly ancient history from a whole different period in media when radio was king. And that's what led into early live television. A lot of those shows were reinvented. So I sort of traced it over several decades. Then The Real World is a big moment. And then there's this explosion with the internet and Survivor.
And you provided, even with Candid Camera, the idea that you had to puncture the normality. It's traced throughout the whole book. This is what is so amazing to me, how it's not just sort of bullet points. It's a thread through the pebbles in the pond, and everything had to keep getting bigger and wilder. And in order for that to happen, there had to be more provocation or more alcohol or whatever.
You mentioned the pebbles on the pond thing. That was The Real World, and that was Mary Ellis Bunham, which obviously you know about. And that was...
I mean, that was stunning.
The showdown, the first season, like The Real World, which, filmed in 1992. And was a really significant step for the genre. Like, it's the first thing that really looks like modern reality television. Yeah. But it almost didn't go forward because the cast rebelled against the crew in a very Gen X way. They wanted it to be highly authentic. And this is not just the cast of it. It was actually the young people who were working on the crew, like the camera people. Everyone was like, how can you intrude? How can you interfere? And so... They put this book with a photo of Eric, who's the hot model from the first season. There was like a nude photo of him in this book, and they put it in the house to try to spark some reaction. And when the cast members realized what they were doing, they blew up, and the whole production stopped as they sorted out like what were the rules of the show, because they were so appalled. This seems so innocent and naive at this point, honestly, when you look back on it. And there's something really sweet and earnest about that season of TV production, because people were really trying to sort out like, what is interference? Is that okay? At this point, I mean, there's no comparison, because the kinds of, and also, I mean, I do think cast members expect a certain kind of intrusion. It's baked into the genre, but at that point they were just inventing it. But one thing I will say is that was not the only rebellion of the cast against the crew. That's the other thing that runs through the book, is these fascinating moments when the cast just pushes back or resists the manipulation, or at one point actually makes a deal to split the prize money during this weird show called Manhunt. I mean, the Big Brother cast almost walked out. I mean, I actually think that this form of clash between both sides is the thing that kind of created the genre, because it runs through. It's like weather systems meeting. It's like an invisible collaboration and battle between the people behind the camera and the people on the camera. But if you're a fan of these shows, you wouldn't know that, because you never see that backstory usually.
Yeah, and we often feel imprisoned, and we, if you go to a prison, there are always loopholes around rules, and there's ways of getting what you want in there. And that's how it is for the cast. We can work around the rules, and sometimes you do get fed up, and then there's a revolt, or a mild one. Oftentimes they're diffused, as you show in the book, that it's this sort of dance between the creators who need to get the footage and create a product, and then keeping enough of the people happy enough to continue filming. Yeah,
the producers have the control. And the producers at this point have the legal, and they have the legal control. I mean, this is a separate thing. This isn't in the book. The book runs from 1947 to like 2009. So the book runs through the rise of Bravo and The Apprentice, but it's not about a lot of the modern stuff. But I just wrote this piece for The New Yorker about Love is Blind. And in that piece, I was actually more focused on some of the legal and labor issues. And I will say, when I was working on that piece, I was a little shocked, even after working on this book, by how much cast members were... I knew people were manipulated, but there's still a sort of naivety of people going into production where they don't fully understand the power dynamics. And this seems to me to be deliberate. And of course, there are these contracts that decree, because there's an NDA that says not just that you can't spoil the show, but that you can't talk about what happened at all. And then if you have complaints about exploitation or abuse, you're forced into private arbitration. So obviously, this is unethical and wrong. It's part of the labor problem that underlies the entire genre, and honestly did since the 1940s. Like back in the 1940s, radio actors were complaining about the rise of reality. It's like this ongoing thing.
That is a hoot.
But even so, even with all the just the genuine ethical problem of this, there's also a problem, I think, for viewers of the shows, because if people can't talk about how the shows are made, the people watching them are kept in the dark. And so part of what I'm doing with this book is actually trying to educate the audience. Like,
Yes.
You know, if this is your favorite genre, you should understand where it came from and what it consists of. Like, how is it produced? And that's I think central to what I'm trying to do here. You were talking about the dance between both sides and the complicated attempts that cast members make to ease their circumstances. But your comparison to prison guards, well, I understand why for some listeners, maybe that sounds extreme. That seems really right on to me, especially in terms of some shows I wrote about, like the early Bachelor, where because the cast, like many prison guards, their own conditions were really extreme, they took them out on the cast members because the two sides were locked in this extremely weird situation where they're all exhausted. It's a very unhealthy environment. There's all this pressure. But the producers and the people on the crew have the power to maneuver and position the people on the show, and they're rewarded for getting them to cry. I mean, I could say for abusing them, but basically for squeezing out the drama that's necessary for the show. And I do think, I'm not saying this is true in every show. And frankly, I liked a lot of the producers I talked to because they're charming people. That's their job, you know, and some of them are very good storytellers, but I do think they get numb to what's normal in the outside world as far as breaking somebody's heart and lying to them in order to get them to have a crack up on camera. And that's par for the course on a lot of shows. And I would say, especially on dating shows. I'm sure if I was talking to a producer right now, we could have an argument about like what's an acceptable level of manipulation. But I have to say, even as somebody who knows a lot about the shows, there were things that people told me that really did shock me. And it's fascinating when I talk to producers who were very open about what they did, either because they were ashamed of them or because they were proud of them. I mean, I think that was very illuminating, hearing people talk about what it takes when you're interviewing somebody to get them to crack up in a way that makes, quote, good TV.
Yeah. And I think some of them can justify it in their mind and feel like they're making art in some way, or, you know, just great entertainment, and it's worth it. And I think there is sort of a willful ignorance or a suspension of something that allows them to forget that we're just regular people that then have to pay consequences for sometimes decades for what we say or how we're portrayed, that we don't always have control over, especially when you read in your book about the actual lies and Frankenbites and things that they add that truly did not happen. That's tough.
I don't know if people know the term Frankenbite, but it's one of many terms of art within the editing community, and actually sort of trace the stage at which, you know, there's always a little manipulation and throwing things out of order to create a good story. And then there's an increase in intensity as to how much somebody can just make up. And there was one, I really appreciated the editors who talked openly with me about the period at which this became more common. And one person had spoken about a moment where there was an inarticulate guy who was on one of the Bachelor spinoffs. I don't think it was actually The Bachelor. It was maybe Bachelor in Europe or something. And she took him saying but and him saying and him saying flies and just made the sentence, I have butterflies. And she, at the time, justified it because she was like, it made him sound emotional, and he was an inarticulate guy who was incapable of expressing his emotions. And also, it was obviously a crafty thing to do as an editor. Like, she found those clips, she put them together.
Yeah, skillful.
She's not alone in this. This is like a normal thing that happens on shows, especially on some shows. I mean, shows vary in their approaches. But that's one of the tricky things is sometimes you do something like that that's very deceptive, but also you're proud of it as craft and you please your bosses. I mean, this is the dynamic, I think, for a lot of people who work on these shows is this is an accomplishment. And look, the editors on reality television are in many ways I wouldn't call them the auteurs because it's a collaborative thing, but they have an enormous role in shaping what goes on these shows. And the development of the editing style through time is itself very fascinating to me, from that period when the Real World, like came up with this sort of jangled chronology, and at the time tilty cameras and close-ups and zooms and the uses of people's interviews as voiceovers. And at this point, all of this stuff is somewhat established. Like when a show goes on the air and you look at it, you know it's a reality show because you know what it looks like. But it was these, depending on your perspective, like these hardworking, canny, often quite creative and visually innovative editors, and also editors who were willing to make the story by any means necessary, which definitely happens on some shows. I asked a lot of producers whether there was a line for shows that is there a kind of show they wouldn't do. And some of them said prank shows because they're not, non-consensual. But a lot of them said dating shows, like people who did more torture shows or shark shows, or they felt like dating shows were the worst in that way because they seem more intrusive, but also they're often more deceptive. But it was fascinating by attempts. We were talking about like the cast rejecting things and rebelling. And one of the things, I don't know whether this happened when you were doing the shows, did anybody do this thing like Real World cast members in some seasons would dye their hair several times to try to foil the chronology switching? Yeah. So that like if you were a redhead at the beginning, they couldn't suddenly take a scene from there and include it at the end. So people would do all sorts of things to try to bust up the ability of the show to portray them in a way they didn't want. I don't know whether anybody did those sorts of things.
Yes, and they would be, fined. We would get fined for any kind of thing like that. They take the money, you're not paid until after. And so the whole time you're filming, they can say, well, that's $1,000 deduction for that. So sometimes people would make no money at all, $0, because they got fined so much for all their misbehavior. But that's what's insane is we're hired because we misbehave on these shows. That's what the challenge is supposed to be, people misbehaving. We stop being polite. That's the whole thing.
You've written about this so beautifully, this exact catch-22, where like you're hired in order to drink and party and act out and then fined and paid nothing. Right. I mean, look, it is just...
It's funny.
It's funny. In the book, I write a lot about the attempts to unionize crew, which was an attempt that started and failed in the early aughts. There was an attempt to unionize reality producers with the WGA. And there's been some progress on that with editors, not with producers. It's still a strike-breaking, non-unionized thing. But there's been almost no attempt to get rights or better compensation for cast members. Like, that's actually become this real shit show because... For a long time, people weren't paid at all and had no rights, and that's still true. But now there's this sort of alternate economy where people become influencers. And so then you get like Andy Cohen saying, well, when people go on the show, it's not a workplace. Later on, they can start a perfume business. And it's like, that's a completely made up, like that's a handful of people. So to me, I'm like, it's a workplace. Both sides should be well compensated. But as this book traces, the history of the genre is that in large part it exists because of its bad conditions, including the compensation element. It's still a budget tactic. So that's the part that, I talked to one producer who was like, I don't really want them to unionize because then it won't exist. He's like, this is my career. And I, that's in one way awful. In another way, that's just pragmatic. He was just like, let's be realistic. It wouldn't exist if the conditions were better, especially the labor conditions.
I, like Becky from Real World season 1, I too pulled my husband from the fourth wall. He was my sound guy on the challenge. And I often see the crew, especially the camera operators and the PAs and people on set, as being exploited too. They work terribly long hours. They have terrible conditions, and it's often thankless. And it's more the people at the top that I find more a part of the problem. And I want to know if you think they genuinely don't see the things that they do that are ethically dubious.
I mean, I can't read somebody's mind. And the truth is, one of the difficulties I had in writing these books, and this is not that surprising, is a lot of the pioneering people who created the shows have a sort of piratical charisma. You know, they're charmers, they're pushy, they pushed through all sorts of provocative stuff. And so I do think that there's a quality to that personality type that is not necessarily super sensitive, empathetic, or prone to guilty feelings about people being pushed around. And obviously, I don't want to like summarize and say this is true of everyone, but it's funny. Sarah Gertrude Shapiro, this is not a top dog person, but she worked as a producer on The Bachelor, and she felt like a lot of her colleagues were sociopaths because she felt like doing the job tapped into her own sociopathy. And I do think that there's a quality of being able to do that kind of work that demands tamping down and numbing but I'm not saying that there's no compassion on the part of the people at the top, but but I also sort of don't care. Even if you're compassionate, you still can't exploit people. And you're right. It's the people at the top of the ladder who profit from this and often are the ones providing the sort of propagandistic version of the show.
Oh, this is what makes me so mad. So in the book, you talk about the amazing cultural impact of Pedro from Real World San Francisco. And Buna Murray talks about it a lot, too. They hang their hat on this incredible casting and portrayal and how it changed the world. But you point out that part of why it was so effective was because they had Puck to be the counterweight and the villain to Pedro's hero. And then they really didn't ever do anything like that again. I mean, they've had great representation of LGBTQ people, and lately more minorities are being recast on the challenge and things like that. But I don't know why they prop that up constantly. It feels like a distraction. Like, look over here at this amazing thing we did, and like pay no attention to this binge drinking, whatever.
I mean, honestly, this is one of the complexities of writing the book. I didn't want to write the book constantly going on the one hand, on the other hand, on the one hand, on the other hand. But often shows literally did have this quality where they are in a sort of, it's a floor wax, it's a dessert topping, it's both. Yeah. And simultaneously the show can be, the Real World does deserve a tremendous amount of credit in terms of representational stuff. And that third season is no joke. Like, part of it is just kismet, part of it's casting, part of it is the fact that actually, that season just came together in this way. He did have a big impact on the world. And honestly, casting Puck, and this is what George Verschure, the showrunner at the time, would say also, is like, if it had been just Pedro, maybe it would have just been like a public service announcement. But because it wasn't, it was an amazing story. I realize some people on the show may not agree with me about this, but I do think that's what made it work. But yes, it was also the beginning of like a long strain of portrayals that do not live up to that standard. And, honestly, when I saw I stopped watching at Vegas because the first
that hot
Vegas
tub scene
season
really got to you.
It was just the casting. I just felt like if you cast people who are all basically 20-year-old people with enormous addiction problems, not just one, but like the whole cast, I don't know. It disturbed me and it made me feel guilty as a viewer. But, I had watched a lot of stuff up until then. I would continue to watch. So, I mean, the role of the audience is a whole other question. But yes, your basic point, which is that oftentimes the people in charge of the show will point to the one most positive attribute of the show and try to make it stand in for the entire thing. I mean, that's understandable. Their job is to sell the show. But it's true that for outside observers, it's better to look at the big picture of it.
There was this thread I wrote at the top of my notes. It's a tale of two stories because it is the genre is illuminating and it is exploitative. Those are both true. It is amazing and it is gross. It's all true. And even in my own life, it's brought me so many blessings and so much therapy needed, Both.
And I mean, that's why your perspective is the most valuable, because only people who are within these shows can truly speak to what they mean. And as you're talking about, like, people's experience while they're on the show, in the immediate aftermath, and years later vary a lot. And one of the great but difficult things about writing this book was I was talking to people often 30 years after they had made the show, 20 years after. And so what they remembered and the way they saw it was often quite different than what they thought at the time.
I just feel like there's a theme also of contempt. Like, I feel like the audience kind of hates the people that they're watching. And I think that the crew has like a little bit of resentment to the participants. Sort of like there's a sense that we should be just grateful to be on TV. And the audience feels like a little shame that they're even watching it.
Yeah, I think I do think it's really messed up. And I think it's the reason why it's often hard to advocate for better treatment of both the cast and the crew is when the show is designed to cause people to look down on the people they're also following passionately. It encourages them to have an attitude of contempt, or that they're disposable, or to somehow treat them as unreal.
I don't know if you saw, but this morning I tagged you on Instagram in a picture because at my premiere party of Road Rules, Mary Ellis Bunim was there, and the movie, The Truman Show had just come out, and she's wearing a Free Truman pin in the photo.
That's amazing.
Isn't that delicious?
That's incredible. What was your relationship with Mary Ellis like?
It was great.
That's great.
She was very kind. I was cast at 18 and I was a virginal Christian, you know, the trope. And I think she was concerned and would send me like books on like how to get scholarships to college and universities and stuff, because I think she thought, this lady's not going back to school. She's going to just work at Chili's Bar and Grill or whatever. And I think that worried her, but like not enough to like, you know,
no, but that's a great story. I'm glad that she actually reached out, and it is true. That is a trope. I wrote a piece about that bar that was basically about a bar where all the reality stars went, because that was during the time that many reality stars were flowing into LA and was becoming a sort of sub community. And one of the things that I felt was that it was almost like they graduated from different colleges and they were all college alumni, and people had cross-season relationships. They were living with their roommates. The survivors looked down on everyone else as though they'd gone to Ivy League schools. Yeah. But the real world people were really close to one another. And a lot of times it was because they had gone in when they were 19 or 20. It's a totally different thing. Like, I'm not saying that people don't get exploited or aren't naive when they go in later on, but the real world took people when they were adolescents. Like, their whole psychology and identity was formed from the show. And I just think that was such a unique experience that in healthy and unhealthy ways, the post real world community in LA kind of was attached to one another, and they had just had a specific thing. So I remember that was a long time ago. Yeah, there was, I mean, everybody uses the word trauma bonding. Like, there were just the two things every reality star talked about was the producer felt like my therapist, and there was trauma bonding.
Well, I can't thank you enough for writing it. I can only imagine how much work it was. All those interviews, all of these bozos like me that you have to
This is not bozos.
Through.
No, there were. Look, this was a lot of work, and I had not written a book like this before. I'd written a lot of criticism and profiles. This is nonfiction history. It's different. But the fun part was the interviews, because people involved in this are fascinating and have great stories that should be heard. So that's the part of it I loved. And I was very happy when I got to reach people who were central and significant to it. So
our listeners are going to love it. I hope everyone reads Cue the Sun, The Invention of Reality TV. I wish also that I had, in your acknowledgments, you mentioned this person you were thanking who endured your barest 70s rants, and I would have loved to hear those.
This is my friend
I'm
Laura.
sad about it.
Yeah.
Laura, a last thing we ask everybody, if you have a car, what do you keep in the trunk of your car, Emily?
What do I keep in the trunk of my car? Well, we don't have a car anymore. I did just get an e-bike, so I'm very excited about that. Let's see.
That's cool. Does it have a basket or any kind of bag on it?
Yes, it has a basket at the front, just like in The Wizard of Oz, so I can go biking around. I should just get a small dog and keep that in the front. No, I only just got this, so so I guess what I put in it is just my my bag. I'm sorry, it's such a boring answer. What did I keep in the trunk of my car? What do other people do?
It's indicative of like where you are in your life. You know, people tend to have like something from like right now in there. It's weird.
Oh, that is interesting.
Wonder what's in your bag? Anything of note?
Let's see. What is in my bag? I am a very flaky, disorganized person. So I've deliberately tried to get super organized. So what's in it are little bags of stuff. So there's like my bag of makeup, but then there's a new wonderful little silver bag with a blue lightning bolt on it. And that contains my ID, my credit cards, my lipstick, my powder, and my key to the house. And that's the thing. I can, if I just have to rush out, I can take anywhere. And then, do I have anything? And then, it's like such obvious stuff. I always have a book, and I always have my phone and my battery. And I'm always trying to remember to make sure my battery's charged. I'm sorry. I wish I had something cool. No, I wish I had.
Very cool.
I don't know. I have multiple lipsticks in my other bag, but then I have the one sort of basic lipstick that can apply to everything in my little silver bag. But I love this silver bag. That's my new.
It's surprising how many people have nothing in their trunk, and that always worries me. Like an empty
then they have
vessel.
space when there's an emergency.
Yeah,
I don't know. Right. I live in New York, so a lot of people don't have cars, and we had this sort of beater that we used because we sometimes go to Canada. So I guess so we didn't store a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I like this for you. I just can't thank you enough. You're a genius. I'm sorry I kept you so long, but I could have talked to you all day. So really, I let you off.
It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. And it was great talking to you and hearing a little bit about your experience as well. So
thank you. I hope everyone reads it. You're going to be a hit.
Yay.
Bye-bye.